I read a lot of queer books recently. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now today's episode of Romance Reader tries a different genre. It's regarding pride books. It's regarding LGBTQIA plus books that I have been accumulating on my TBR but I haven't read. Every time I see a new queer novel, I usually am interested in it and I add it to my TBR, but then it just keeps growing bigger and bigger, and I always tell myself, you know, like one day you'll binge read all of them, one day you'll just read all of them in one sitting, don't worry about it. But then the list just grew on and it just grew longer and longer. I was just never forcing myself to read the books because I'm such a huge mood reader. So I was just waiting for the perfect opportunity. And of course, me showing up to the party late with a Starbucks in hand, I decided to read all the queer books after Pride Month, which is the month of June. So with all that being said, I'm still happy that I did read all these books because I found myself like a new genre that I really do appreciate and really love. And I can't wait for new and upcoming titles now as a result of me reading all these books. So I think for this video, I read around 10 queer novels, but I'm actually not too sure because I didn't really do a full count yet. Some of these books are from own voices. So the authors have their like experiences and they represent themselves in like the characters, and then some of these books are not, and some of these books are also coming out this year or they already came out recently, so there's some fairly new reviews, and then some of them have come out like in the last 2 years or so, so they're fairly recent. So with that being said, I don't think I'm going to rate each book that I'm going to talk about in this video. Of course I did my rating on Goodreads, but I just feel like personally, like me rating a book and me giving it like an average rating or like a lower rating would discourage you guys from reading these books. But it just could be a me personal thing since this is like my first time trying the genre, and I don't want to discourage other people from trying out a book simply because I didn't connect with it. And oftentimes ratings do kind of discourage you from reading the book regardless of what I said about what I liked about it and what I didn't like. Like sometimes like people are just turned off by a 3-star rating or a 2-star rating, but then like they hear about all the pros and they're really liking the pros and like the cons are a little bit, but then because I put a rating of a lower rating of like maybe a 3 or a 2-star, you're all of a sudden discouraged from picking up the book that you were highly most anticipating. So I'd rather not do that for this video. With all that being said, let's get started with this video. So the most recent queer book that I've read is actually called Camp, and it's by L.C. Rosen. And now this author actually wrote a very popular book called Jack of Hearts and Other Parts, which I haven't read yet, but I'm very intrigued by it because a lot of people have been talking about very good things about it. So I'm very excited. So Camp is kind of like a very highly anticipated kind of like follow up from the author of like Jack of Hearts and Other Parts. So far right now on Goodreads, everybody has been talking about really good things about this book. Now this book actually follows a queer character who is going to camp. Every single year there's actually this camp for queer teens, and like basically all his friends from like different parts of the city, different parts of the states actually gather at this camp, and this is the time where they have the best time of their lives because normally when they go back into like their respectable hometowns, they don't have that many queer teens around them and they don't feel like that they're at place. So this camp is kind of like their perfect paradise where they actually can talk about all the things that they want to talk about and express themselves in the way that they express themselves without fearing judgment from others in the neighborhood and in the community. And now this concept is very cute and very perfect for summer already because like, hello, it's summer, so it's time for going camping, even though right now we obviously can't go camping. And so our main male character is Randy, and now Randy is in love with like the camp's player. So basically he loves to date other boys in the camp, and then he would like break their hearts at the end of the summer, or like for 2 weeks he'll always break someone's heart and then date someone else in the next 2 weeks. So he's basically like playing with other people's hearts. So Randy is convinced that he is able to change the player's mind and that he is able to basically be his boyfriend forever and for life. This is a story of Randy basically changing everything about himself to fit into someone else's mold so that they will like them. Pros about this book is that I really like the camp setting because it allowed these characters to flourish and allow these characters to really feel at home, and the author does a really good job at describing that and making you feel that this is their happy place, and you as a reader feel happy that they're happy in a place where they're allowed to be. And then cons about this book is that a lot of reviews on Goodreads have touched upon on this, but basically there are two types of queer characters in this book, and it's kind of hard for people to like it because there's either one that's very like dramatic, flamboyant, in your face queer, and then the other person, the other type of queer, is very like masculine type of queer, and there's like never a in between. And this is what a lot of reviewers have noticed and have seen, and I actually like kind of realized it after I read a couple of the reviews, and I was kind of disappointed in that too as well. And another thing is that this book actually follows a very cliche storyline where Randy is changing everything about himself to the point that people don't recognize him and people think that he's a new camper, and you just kind of already know that this kind of love doesn't last because like you're lying about yourself and the other person is falling in love with a lie that you've created. Overall, this book was okay, and it wasn't like my favorite, but it wasn't also the worst. So the next book that I read was The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta, and now this book is like everywhere on Bookstagram, and I love both versions of it. There's like a UK cover, and there's also like, I guess like the American cover, and I just like really like it, and I was very intrigued about it because this one is about a mixed race teen who basically comes to terms with himself and finds himself at university where he joins a club where he can become a drag artist, and then people are teaching him how to put on makeup, people are teaching him how to be confident with himself and his persona on stage, just to have like the freedom to really express himself. And this book also talks about racism and his own new sexual experiences in university, and also his like romantic relationships with other like people at university, and it's like enlightening to read. It was very powerful at a lot of moments. Reason why there's like a lot of people who are hyping about this book and who are talking about it, but I really enjoyed this book and I really do recommend you to read this one if you are interested. So the next book that I read was Conventionally Yours by Annabeth Albert, and now this book was actually sent to me from Source Books, and so I decided to read it. This book came out in like May of this year, I think. So this book actually follows the enemies to lovers tropes between these two big huge convention fans. Like they're really into board games and they're like really into like the characters and everything, so they have to go on this road trip where they are to shoot and to join a competition, and then like somewhere along the way their third middle friend has to leave them, so then now like the buffer is gone, and then now they both have to like kind of like fend for themselves and to not like rip each other's throats out at like every single minute. They both have like their misconceptions of each other. One of them is a very perfect person who has his shit together, who has like his schoolwork done, has a loving family, and it seems like that he's very comfortable with himself. And then the other one is kind of like a mess where he doesn't really know what he's doing in life. He's kind of like depending on like the next big thing to bring him financial security or to bring him like the security that he wants in life, and he has a broken relationship with his family, and there's like just like a lot of issues. So obviously we have like one character who looks down at the perfect character because they're kind of like envious and jealous that like they have everything together, and then the other one is just like kind of like looking at them going like, you know, you're being so arrogant and you're being so rude to me, like why? So this book is actually like a road trip book where they kind of head across the country to go to this convention where they play board games, and then they win the ultimate prize, and then like it's like kind of like that, and they each want to win because they want to prove to their families or to themselves about something regarding about themselves. And overall I thought this book was cute and it had its moments, but overall I thought that it was kind of lacking in chemistry between the two characters. Like sure, they hated each other, kind of felt that they hated each other, not really kind of felt that they hated each other, like they're just being flippant with each other, and then I didn't really see any sexual tension, so I didn't really care. And then when they finally started liking each other, I didn't think that there was much chemistry, and I didn't think that it was very adorable or very cute. And also, like, if you read a lot of the reviews on Goodreads, you will already know that the book focuses a lot on gaming and board games. And then if you're not into that, you're gonna get bored because it goes very deeply into the board games, and it goes very deeply into like the logistics of the board games. Overall, it was like kind of like an average book. It wasn't too bad, but it wasn't also like my favorite. So the next book that I read was Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall, and now this book actually recently came out, and I think in July. And then this book follows like the son of a very famous celebrity couple, and then we also have a very straight-laced barrister who is basically a lawyer in the UK. And this book actually actually takes place in the UK. If you are a fan of British humor, if you're a fan of very dry, sarcastic, pessimistic, self-deprecating jokes, then you would absolutely love Boyfriend Material. So I actually listened to the audiobook of Boyfriend Material because I just wanted to like feel the characters, and I absolutely did feel the jokes. Like I was like giggling, I was laughing at the jokes because they're just so funny, and I really love the sarcasm in this book. So then this book actually follows a fake dating trope. So our son of a very famous celebrity couple actually works for like an agency, and then because he had like a photo taken of him, his reputation is compromised, and then now his boss is giving him an ultimatum to clean up his image, and if he doesn't clean up his image, he basically has to lose his job. So he decides to fake date this barrister that he knows, who is very straight-laced, who like kind of like cleans up everywhere he goes. He's absolutely the opposite of our main character that I just talked about, and he always is in stable relationships and never with flings, but then those relationships always end because he's just so much focused on his work that he's not focusing on his partner. And then so then we have our two characters who are complete opposites attract, and they go together. And I thought that there were so many cute moments where you can already sense the sexual tension between each other, but then there's always like this kind of like push and pull because they're trying to convince each other that they don't like each other that much and that they're completely wrong for each other and they should avoid each other at all costs. What I didn't like about this book was that our son of like the rock star celebrity romance people, he had a lot of insecurities, and he always kind of like projected himself on him. He always has this negative mindset to him where he believes that everybody in his life he doesn't deserve, and he tends to always push people away. And it gets very tiring when he keeps pushing people away only to go back to their faces and tell them that they actually need them in their lives. Like that was the frustrating part. I also didn't like how self-deprecating he was towards the end, because it gets tiresome in the end when he keeps calling himself like a complete mess. He calls himself that he needs to get his shit together and that he needs to be an adult. I thought that that was just like very annoying to read, specifically towards the end, because you're kind of wondering if he ever has any character development. But overall, this book was good, but I just can't say it was my favorite because of all the cons that I just listed. So the next book that I read was actually a YA book once again, and it's called This Is Kind of an Epic Love Story. And this book is by the author Kaysen Callender. And now this book follows two teens, and they were childhood friends. They were really good friends. And then until one day, our main male character, Nathan, actually kisses Oliver, and Oliver runs away, and Oliver actually moves to like a different city and never to be seen again until they enter into high school. Now, I believe Nathan, if I remember correctly, is actually bisexual, and he really likes his best friend named Florence, but then Florence is kind of always very hot and cold with him. You know, like Florence is always joking, like, you know, I'll take your virginity, you know, we'll kiss and we'll hook up, but I can't be anything else and very serious with you. And so then Nathan's very confused about his relationship status with Florence a lot of the times in the books, and you could tell that Nathan's actually pining for Florence always. But then what happens when Oliver actually returns back into high school, and Nathan's like memories of Oliver actually spark up, and his feelings spark up too, and things get more complicated and more dramatic as we go along with the story, of course, because we have like characters who are not so nice intervening with Nathan and Oliver's love story. So this book was overall like pretty good. I thought that it was pretty cute that it was like a second chance romance and that it involved childhood friends, because that's kind of like my sucker point. If you guys knew each other for a very long time and you had the opportunity in the future to date, kind of like the stuff that I eat up a lot always. But there was another point where I kind of just didn't really like the very toxic relationship or friendships that they involved in this book. And once you read it, you kind of like realize how toxic people are. And a lot of people have actually said this already, but they basically said that the friendships were never improved upon or never fixed or never properly addressed about like how toxic someone can be, and then like and having someone call them out on it so that they can change. So overall, this book was pretty good, but obviously it's not my favorite once again. So the next book that I read is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. And now this book, everybody has been talking about it because the cover is gorgeous and also because the premise of the book is very cute. So this book follows a character named Liz, and Liz is too Black. So Liz is actually not from a very like financially wealthy background. She actually depends a lot on scholarships, and she depends a lot on getting a scholarship so that she can apply to programs and also to go to college and to do everything. So this book follows the story of what happens when Liz realizes that her scholarship falls through, and now she suddenly needs money very fast in order to complete her schooling, in order for her to continue on to the career path that she has set herself upon, because she is a very dedicated student. She works very hard at her work. She's like top grades and everything. She's basically trying to beat like the system and trying to be the best of the best. And you can see her being a very strong character. So she's also openly queer and she embraces it, but she also doesn't really tell much people about it, but she doesn't announce it and she doesn't make it into this big thing because it's her own thing and it's like her private thing and it's also a part of her. So there's really nothing much more to discuss the fact that she likes girls. So then what happens when the only way for her to earn enough money to go to college is to actually participate in the high school pageant, because once you run to become prom king and prom queen, you actually win a large sum of money. So Liz decides to change herself and to actually make herself into a queen and to speak up and to be the new popular person. Obviously there is going to be a lot of obstacles in the way. There's a lot of catty characters, and there's also a new girl in town who is also running for queen, and Liz also has a crush on her. It talked about racism, it talked about economic inequality, it talked about like teens just falling in love, and it talked about like teens interacting with each other. So it was very a wholesome book that like wrapped up a lot of these like social issues that is very interesting to read and it's very important to read. And overall I did enjoy this book. So the last book that I read was Date Me, Bryson Keller, and this one's by Kevin Van Wy. And now this book actually released this year in May 2020, and I got an arc of it, but I put it off because I always tend to put it off. And then I finally read it and I really hated myself for not reading it sooner, because this one is by far my favorite queer novel ever. It was just so cute to the point that I just wanted to grip the book and like to grip the pages because it was just so cute and fluffy, and it was just, oh, it was perfect. So this book follows two characters named Kai and Bryson, and then now Kai is a closeted gay and he basically doesn't want to tell anybody that he's gay because he knows that the prep school that he goes to definitely ridicule him for his sexual preferences, and he just doesn't want to talk about it and make it into a big deal. He just wants to survive high school. But what happens when Bryson accidentally makes Kai show up late to school and to class, and then all of a sudden Kai has detention and he's angry at Bryson, and then Kai actually asks Bryson out in like this like kind of like a flippant like reaction towards Bryson being popular and getting away with things, and Bryson actually says yes. So they go on secret dates throughout the whole entire week, and this is the story of one character finding himself and to really understand his sexual preferences, and we have this one character who's more open about it and who's actually willing to talk about it to a lot of other people. And it was just so cute and so fluffy from like the interactions they had with each other. And like, let's just discuss that how Bryson is basically the best book boyfriend ever. He's so attentive, he's so sweet, he's so caring, and he always wants the best for Kai, and he's always looking out for Kai. And without that being said, I definitely recommend you to pick up this book. I actually bought the UK version of this book as well because I really like the UK cover. So that is it for all the queer novels that I did read so far this week. I really enjoyed a lot of these books, and I'm definitely going to be adding a lot to my TBR and actually reading them. So if you guys have your favorites, definitely let me know in the comments down below. And yes, I know a lot of people have been telling me to go read the Red, White, and Royal Blue, and I want to, but that book is very thick and I'm still very scared of thick books. But I know it's like everybody's favorites, so definitely I'll try to read it. But without that being said, hopefully you had some recommendations to add to your TBR. Let me know what your favorites are in the comments, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.